If you're thinking about moving to Nashville, Tennessee, before you do, I just wanted to share my story so you have one man's perspective on what it's been like. I moved here with my wife Kristin 10 years ago, and we were very broke. Like, really broke. Our marriage was on shaky ground and we needed to find some beacon of hope. We thought Nashville might be it, but was it? We've been robbed multiple times, including at gunpoint, nearly got divorced, and faced bankruptcy since we moved here. But then, something else happened. I'm gonna tell you everything, and I'm getting after it right now. One of the first things we discovered when moving to Nashville is the famous Southern hospitality. People here are generally warm and friendly, and you feel it from nearly everyone you meet. If we haven't met yet, my name is Vegh. I'm a realtor here in Nashville with the Tennessee You Soon team. If you're considering a move to the area, we would love to help you find that perfect home and make a smooth move to Middle Tennessee. Call, text, or email. We absolutely love hearing from you, and you can find our contact information in the description. Now back to the subject of Southern hospitality, and I will continue my story. A few things happened surprisingly fast when we were planning our move to Nashville a decade ago, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we moved to Nashville, we were living in Florida with my parents to save up some money to recover from a rather unfortunate financial event. You see, for years I had been working as an independent contractor, and when you do that, your taxes aren't taken out of your income, so you need to pay the IRS of your own accord. You can probably see where this is going. I eventually got to tax season one year and didn't have the money to pay the IRS in full, so they put me on a payment plan. Let me just interject one man's opinion here. Never owe the IRS money. Pay them before you pay just about anyone else. That way, what happens to me next won't happen to you. The payments were coming out of our checking account on auto draft, kinda like set it and forget it style, and unfortunately, I forgot it. And so after 1 year of auto payments, one fateful October, the auto drafts stopped and my wife and I didn't notice, but the IRS did. Come that December, just 2 months later, my wife and I were at a Redbox machine trying to rent a movie, and our debit card was being repeatedly declined. My heart instantly sank into my stomach and I felt a nervous lump in my throat. We immediately went to our bank to find out that when the IRS stopped receiving payments, they decided to levy our accounts for the entire amount owed. Put simply, the IRS took every penny. We suddenly had no money and rent was due. Now, the only reason I'm telling you all of this is so you understand what state we were in and why a married couple would go and do something as crazy as moving in with the in-laws. We managed to save up money for a time while my parents were gracious enough to give us shelter while we saved. My cousin, who already lived in Nashville, informed me that there were a lot of opportunities in Nashville in the field I was working in. And so Kristin and I agreed to move to Nashville. And right here was the first indication that we were making the right decision for us. Because as soon as I told people we were moving to Nashville, a friend of mine referred a job opportunity to me that he had to turn down. So not only were we making this big leap, but I was moving into a job that I was able to secure before we moved to Nashville. So this was very exciting at the time, and boy, did we need it. Shortly after we moved here, we started to connect with new people and old friends. And one day while my wife and I were out at lunch, we spotted one of my former coworkers and his wife that just so happened to live in Nashville. After we recovered from our surprise, we all decided to enjoy lunch together and catch up. This day stands out in my mind because while I already knew Truman, I had yet to meet his wife, Melissa, and they both gave us one of our first true tastes of Southern hospitality. We were greeted like old friends. Melissa learned all about our situation, and she She even said she would put in a recommendation at her company for Kristin to help her get a job there. This job didn't come to fruition for a while, but this small gesture meant a lot and led to great opportunities for us down the road, but I'll get to that soon. Shout out to Truman and Melissa for being true representatives of that famous Southern hospitality we love so much here in Tennessee. With all this talk about jobs, I should reiterate that the promise of Nashville's job market was what drew us here in the first place. But has it lived up to its reputation? Well, let me tell you the next part of our story. The aforementioned job I mentioned I was getting here in Nashville was a seasonal job on the road, managing merchandise and inventory like I had been the previous 10 years. Kristin also found a job at a local thrift store shortly after we moved here, on the recommendation of yet another friend we bumped into. Shout out to Josh. With both of us employed, things were starting to look up, but only because we were ignoring several elephants in the room. And with my work being seasonal, not only was my income sporadic, but eventually I ran out of opportunities to continue that work, which started leading to some aimlessness and depression on my part. Kristin eventually received an opportunity to interview at the same company as Melissa, and she was able to make a huge move up in income as she was accepted into her new position in medical billing. But it was not long after that all of my seasonal work opportunities dried up and the elephants in the room became too big and loud to ignore. Kristin and I had several problems. First, between medical bills, credit card debt, and student loans, we were $100,000 in debt, and that was without carrying any mortgages or car notes. Second, Kristin really wanted children, even if that meant adopting, and we weren't exactly in the best shape emotionally or financially to handle that. Third, we were slowly growing apart as our interests diverged, and the reality of our financial situation caused more and more stress to build the longer we tried to pretend it wasn't there. Then, two things happened that completely changed our lives. First, we fairly nearly got divorced. Ultimately, we did have to spend a couple weeks apart to figure out if we even still wanted to try and make it work, and thankfully we did. Second, we read a book called The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. Some of you have probably heard of the book and Dave himself, so you can probably guess where this is going next. I was the first one to read it, and within it, I saw a path to get ourselves out of the mess we were in. It helped kick me into gear, and I started applying for jobs left and right until I settled into a good, steady warehouse job that I kept for the next couple years. This is when I began to discover something interesting about Nashville's job market. There is so much opportunity for people willing to work here. And I had 3 job interviews in no time after months of procrastination. Eventually, Kristin also read the book, and it was like a light bulb turned on for both of us. We decided together that we were going to get out of our $100,000 of debt and actually start working together towards a future, so we got after it. Kristin applied for a change in position at her company that allowed for up to 20 hours of overtime a week, and she worked them. We both looked for and worked side gigs and eventually landed on working for Pizza Hut as a delivery driver for second jobs. At that time, we were both working 70 to 80 hours a week. And here is what astonished us. If we actually went after something here in Nashville, we got it. We went from barely scraping by to making about $120,000 in combined income simply because we decided to put the work in and Nashville provided the opportunities. So, after a decade of ignoring or avoiding our financial problems, I'm happy to tell you that after we made the decision to get rid of the $100,000 in debt, we achieved it in 12 months and 10 days. Yes, we counted. Since then, Kristin and I have become realtors, a career we have been able to flourish in. We've been able to purchase a home after being renters our entire adult lives. And we also adopted our daughters, Zaylin and Ella, from the foster care system. I'm not sure how much of this would have happened if we hadn't moved here, so I will always be grateful to Nashville for how it helped us change our lives. I did tease a few things early in this video though, so I figure I owe you an explanation about Nashville's dark side. Because Nashville isn't perfect. The first thing that jumped out at me that I've never been a fan of here is the high sales tax. It varies from county to county, but across the state, the sales tax here is well over 9%. And it took me a while to adapt to paying so much in sales tax on purchases. Honestly, it still hurts sometimes seeing that final sales total. To illustrate some of the other problems we've had here, I should jump back in time to when I was working at that aforementioned warehouse job. I had to commute into an area near downtown Nashville every day, and though the commute wasn't very far, I was introduced to just how bad Nashville traffic can be. Most mornings it only took me about 30 minutes from where I lived in Antioch to get to my job, but the commutes home during the evening rush hours were brutal, often taking a full hour to get home. Knowing what your commute times might be before you move to Nashville is so crucial, so make sure to give me a call because I can definitely help you research that so you don't pick the wrong home. It was also during the time of my warehouse and Pizza Hut jobs that Kristin and I were robbed multiple times. With one exception, it was our car being cleared out every time. And I lost a couple $100s of my gym equipment when my gym bags were stolen. But the final robbery we experienced was the worst. Kristin was out for a pizza delivery when she was robbed at gunpoint by 3 men who took all of her cash, took the keys, and stole our car. I tell you all of this to say that this only occurred when we lived in certain areas of Nashville, and also to be honest with you and not pretend that Nashville's without its crime. There are some street gangs, there are issues with violence and assault, and there are also some very peaceful and safe places to live here. You just want to make sure you're informed and find the best place for you that also matches your budget and your preferences before you move here. So don't come in blindly. I made a video a while ago covering 15 things I wish I knew before moving to Nashville that you might find helpful. You can see that video if you'd like by clicking right here. If you're still with me, thank you for listening to my story, and I very much hope I get to Tennessee you soon.